It was a busy Friday evening at La Fontaine, an upscale restaurant in Raleigh, North Carolina. Deborah, a 25-year-old waitress, moved gracefully between tables, serving guests with quiet efficiency. But beneath her uniform and polite smile lay a passionate dream. She was a classically trained pianist working to save money for Music Academy. That night, Leonard Grayson walked in. The wealthy entrepreneur made his entrance with an air of superiority, flanked by his polished companions. Known for his sharp tongue and love of spectacle, Leonard immediately caught sight of Deborah and decided she would be his entertainment for the evening. When Deborah approached his table to take orders, Leonard read her name tag with a smirk. Deborah, huh, sounds like someone with hidden talents. She nodded politely and stepped away, but Leonard wasn't finished with her. As she returned with wine, Leonard's voice cut through the noise. Tell me, Deborah, what do you do when you're not carrying plates? Surely you have dreams. I play piano sometimes, she answered softly, hoping to end the conversation. Leonard's eyes lit up. A pianist? Why don't you give us a performance? He gestured toward the grand piano in the corner. Show us what you've got. Surely you're not afraid of an audience. His companions laughed as other diners turned to watch. Deborah felt the weight of their stares, her chest tightening. I really shouldn't. I'm here to work. Ah, I see, Leonard mocked loudly. All talk, no talent. How disappointing. The words stung. Deborah's hands clenched at her sides. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Never let anyone make you small. Fine, she said quietly. I'll play. The room fell silent as Deborah walked to the piano. Her fingers trembled as she touched the keys. She closed her eyes, steadying her breath, then began playing Clair de Lune by Debussy. The first notes were soft and hesitant, but as her confidence grew, the music swelled. Her hands moved with breathtaking grace, each chord carrying years of sacrifice, practice, and deferred dreams. The melody filled the room like a living thing, raw, vivid, and utterly captivating. The diners fell completely silent. Even Leonard stopped whispering to his companions. Deborah was no longer a waitress, she was an artist, pouring her soul into every note. When the final chord faded, the room erupted in thunderous applause. Diners stood, clapping with genuine fervor. Her coworkers beamed with pride. Leonard remained seated, his smirk gone. He clapped slowly, hollow and forced, his arrogance shattered. Deborah stood, trembling but dignified. She nodded to the crowd, then turned her gaze to Leonard. His forced neutrality couldn't hide his discomfort. Well, Leonard said loudly, that was unexpected. I suppose talent comes from surprising places. Deborah's response was calm and measured. Thank you. Everyone has a gift. It's how you choose to use it that matters. The subtle sting of her words rippled through the room. Leonard shifted uncomfortably as his dominance evaporated. Throughout the rest of the evening, patrons stopped Deborah to offer praise. You're incredible, one woman said. You've got something special. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, added another. When Deborah delivered Leonard's check, he muttered, You've made your point. It was never about proving anything to you, she replied firmly. I just wanted to play. Leonard had no response. His group left quietly, their usual grand exit replaced by a hasty retreat. That night's tips were unusually generous, enough for rent and postponed piano lessons. Days later, Deborah received a call from a music producer who'd witnessed her performance. He offered her a chance to record a demo. She agreed, not expecting overnight fame, but embracing the open door. The encounter with Leonard wasn't just a victory, it was a reminder that authenticity and resilience are our greatest strengths. Deborah's message was clear. Never let someone else define your worth. The world is full of people who project their insecurities onto others, but true power comes from staying rooted in who you are and letting your passion speak louder than their ridicule. For the first time in years, Deborah felt certain. She was an artist, and nothing could take that away. For years, Deborah had lived beneath the weight of other people's opinions. Their careless remarks, subtle dismissals, and quiet doubts had layered themselves over her dreams like dust on an abandoned canvas. Each time she reached for her creativity, a voice, never truly her own, whispered that it wasn't enough, that she wasn't enough. Slowly, she had learned to shrink, to explain herself less, to create in private where no one could laugh or question her purpose. But something shifted that day. It wasn't a sudden miracle or dramatic confrontation. It was quieter than that, more powerful. It was the moment Deborah realized that the judgment surrounding her said far more about the people casting it than about her talent. She saw, perhaps for the first time, how insecurity often disguises itself as criticism, and how fear seeks to silence anything brave enough to stand out. She thought back to all the times she had waited for permission. Permission to call herself creative, permission to be bold, permission to take up space. And she understood how long she had been handing her power away, allowing others to decide what she was allowed to become. That realization stung, but it also freed her. Deborah began to see her passion not as a fragile thing that needed protection, but as a force that had survived despite neglect. Every sketch hidden in drawers, every idea abandoned halfway, every late-night burst of inspiration she had dismissed as unrealistic, all of it proved that her creativity had never left her. It had only been waiting. With that understanding came a new kind of confidence. Not the loud, performative kind, but a steady inner certainty. She no longer felt the need to defend her choices or explain her dreams. The doubt of others lost its grip because she stopped inviting it into her decisions. What once felt like ridicule now sounded hollow, powerless against the clarity she carried within herself. She returned to her work with renewed honesty. Not trying to impress, not trying to fit into expectations. She created because it felt true. Because it made her feel alive. Each piece became a declaration, not to the world, but to herself, that her voice mattered. And with every stroke, every idea brought to life, she reclaimed another piece of the self she had once silenced. Deborah also learned that identity is not something granted by applause or recognition. It is built quietly, through persistence, through choosing authenticity even when no one is watching. The absence of validation no longer frightened her. She understood now that worth is not negotiated, it is owned. There were still difficult days. Moments when old doubts tried to resurface. But they no longer defined her direction. She had learned how to stand firm in uncertainty, how to keep moving even when the path wasn't clear. Growth, she realized, doesn't come from proving others wrong, it comes from staying loyal to who you are becoming. In embracing herself fully, Deborah found something far greater than approval. She found peace, and in that peace was strength, the kind that doesn't ask for permission, doesn't fade under pressure, and cannot be taken away. Her journey wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who she had always been, and finally, allowing that truth to breathe. What unfolded next was not transformation in the way the world usually celebrates it. There was no reinvention, no dramatic shedding of one life for another. Instead, Deborah experienced a quiet return to herself. The parts of her she had buried to survive, her instincts, her imagination, her confidence, slowly resurfaced, untouched by time. They had not weakened, they had simply been waiting for her attention. As she leaned into this recognition, she stopped measuring her progress against other people's timelines and expectations. The urgency to prove herself dissolved, replaced by patience and trust. She began honoring her inner voice, listening to it with the same seriousness she once reserved for outside opinions. In doing so, she discovered that authenticity carries its own momentum. With each choice rooted in honesty, she felt lighter, more aligned. Creativity flowed not from pressure, but from permission, the permission she finally granted herself. She no longer chased validation or feared misunderstanding. What mattered was the integrity of her expression and the quiet pride that came from living in alignment with her truth. This acceptance did not erase struggle, but it changed its meaning. Challenges became teachers rather than obstacles, and uncertainty became a space of possibility. By standing fully in who she already was, Deborah stepped into a life that felt whole, one shaped not by expectation, but by self-recognition and unwavering self-respect. That sense of wholeness changed how Deborah moved through the world. She no longer felt fragmented, torn between who she was and who she thought she needed to be. Decisions came from clarity rather than fear, and her energy was no longer drained by trying to meet standards that were never meant for her. Life felt steadier, grounded in an inner alignment she had once believed was out of reach. She noticed how her relationships shifted as well. Without forcing distance, certain voices lost their influence, while others, those rooted in sincerity and respect, naturally drew closer. She learned that belonging doesn't require self-erasure, It grows where honesty is allowed to exist without apology. In choosing herself, she created space for connections that honored her truth instead of questioning it. Her work reflected this evolution. Each creation carried intention, not insecurity. There was a quiet confidence woven into her efforts, a clarity that didn't need explanation. Even when her path remained uncertain, she trusted it, knowing that fulfillment didn't come from predictability but from integrity. There were moments of doubt, but they no longer held power over her direction. She had learned how to pause, reflect, and move forward without betraying herself. In that steadiness, Deborah discovered a rare freedom, the freedom to live without performing, without shrinking, and without waiting for approval. What emerged was not perfection, but peace. A life built on self-respect didn't promise ease, but it offered something far more enduring, the strength to remain true, even when the world asked her to be otherwise.